Hello, folks. Today's guest is John Gayed from the L.A. English Academy in Himeji, and this is the first here of doing an online podcast. We used FreeConferenceCall.com, and I apologize if there are some issues with the noise because we were having some technical issues. And first, we weren't going to go on with the podcast, but we were just getting warmed up, and you know what? No matter what, I said let's just start recording because this is just too good to pass up and everything. So if there are technical problems, my apologies. I'm still learning a lot of new technology here, but I think it went pretty well. And if you're interested in more, he's going to be doing a live webinar on Sunday, March 4th from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. via the School Owners SIG Wixie homepage. You go to jaltsig.wixsite.com /home/event for that information. And yeah, we learned a lot about SEO and about technology. And I think the most important thing is what companies are looking for in terms of English fluency from students. So if you are a Kiowa owner or teacher and you're wondering where is all this studying and all this English stuff this has to lead to in authenticity and in practicality, he gives some great insight into that, since he most of his client base is business, commercial, and company related language skills. So without further ado, please enjoy. My guest is fellow Angeleno, John Gayed of L.A. English Academy, which you can find at www.laenglish.jp. And for information, you can call him if you need his services for SEO optimization or company English, 0800-222-1836, or email him at info@laenglish.jp. So once again, my guest, John Gayed.
You know what? I'm gonna start recording anyway.
Okay.
It's because I realize we're getting warmed up. If there's issues, there's issues, and
no problem.
Let's just go ahead with the podcast.
No problem.
I was like, because I'm already interested.
Okay, great, good. So, one of the things you look at is, Japan is still it's still top 5 in STEM, so science and mathematics, these what are called core subjects. So one of the things that we have to look at as teachers is, if Japan is still using the kind of old-fashioned sage method, right? The teacher stands in front of the
teacher-centered system.
Teacher-centered, and they write on a chalkboard, or maybe it's an advanced school and they have a whiteboard instead of a chalkboard. But still, students here are quite advanced in mathematics, quite advanced in science. So, what does that really say to this huge push and an initiative back home to put more technology in the classrooms? Although you can't compare them, it's not an apples to apples comparison. You can't compare U.S. students with Japanese students. There's cultural differences, right? There's mired of a whole different basket of variables that make Japanese students top 5.
The learning is still effective, in a different way. And just a matter of, I look at what do you value, and educational technology. A lot of it, I look at it's like is how much of it is just like the new trend, because in American education, there's always a new technique, but especially I'm thinking with all this technology is so new that the teachers themselves, we're just catching up. I mean, in many ways, I look at it like, my students, because they're younger, or just younger people in general, they're mastering this technology, on a whole nother level than I am, and I'm still catching up. I'm still like learning, and I kind of feel like, I'm a dinosaur. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Well,
you know.
that's a big part of the educational technology study is doing self-assessment. So understanding where we call it TPAC, so where your technological, pedagogical, knowledge is and where you can improve. So how to identify your weakness as a teacher. Is it with the curriculum? Is it with how you're teaching in the class, or is it with the technology? Do you need to brush up on how to use different forms of technology to keep up with the students? Because obviously they're going to be probably one or two steps ahead of us. Of course, one of the things that I'm always interested in is, well, yeah, sure, Japan has been really successful so far in science and technology and mathematics, but history does not prove future success. So,
you sound like my financial advisor right now.
Exactly.
How's the stock market doing? Well, yeah. No, I totally would agree with you. And I feel like the technology is moving so fast. Like, I feel like once I've oh, this is a cool educational app. I've mastered it. I'm used it in my classroom. And then there's a new one that's quote unquote better.
Right. There could be a new one, and the point is maybe that app that you're using today might be gone tomorrow. We're using Facebook now, we're using Instagram now, a lot of these platforms for communication, etc. But if you look back at the short history of a lot of these technological platforms, most of them are gone in 5 or 6 years. Before there was Facebook, there was what was it, Friendster? Before there was Friendster,
I remember that. I was the early, yeah. And come on, MySpace. Who's still using MySpace?
Exactly.
I think it's more of a musical platform now to share music. But yeah.
So the actual products or the technology is moving at a breakneck pace. So I think one of the things that teachers have to kind of focus on it's not a particular technology or something, but it's how to teach the kids effectively and efficiently, and of course using some technology that's currently available, but realizing that we shouldn't put all of our eggs in one basket and expect that to continue in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I think that is important. Like, the teacher has to be flexible and nimble and open to learning themselves.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, it's kind of funny. I just got turned on to, what is it called, brainpop.com from one of my students, high school students. And, I have to be open that he just, he knows I'm introducing new apps for the kids all the time. Like, check this out. And then so it's, for me as a teacher, I think this is kind of a new age where the student is more empowered. And the teacher has to be open, I feel, that it's like, oh, Brain Pop, cool, let me check it out, and then hopefully I can master it and figure out how I can use it. And then my student will feel more empowered because it's like, oh, I introduced this learning app,
to my teacher,
that helps the other students.
Using it in class.
Yeah. It's kind of, things are, again, talking about Japan being teacher-centered.
Right.
It's being open that it's like, your students have something to teach you too that can benefit the class.
Absolutely. And, that's great. If you have students that are proactive like that and actually discussing with you different tools and apps that they want to use, I think you're doing a lot better than many teachers, because I think most teachers, they don't encourage that type of feedback from students because they're used to. And they're used to what they're doing in their classroom. They're pretty comfortable. So a little bit more about what I do here in Japan. Of course, I'm a director of a language school, but I also teach at a private boys junior high school. And I also teach at companies, and I teach at university. And from April of this year, so in a couple months, I'll be teaching full time at university. So my focus will be at university from April of this year. But it's really easy for teachers just to do the same thing every year, and and not improve and not get feedback from the students, because it's just it doesn't take much effort. It's just the easy way to actually look at what you're doing in the class and maybe to record how you're teaching and record your teaching and to review that later on is an amazingly eye-opening experience. If you could watch yourself teaching in the class and you're like, oh wow, this is, I could really improve on this, or this is a disaster and I really need to do this.
That's the most benefit that you could have, I think. And I look at I kind of tell teachers, especially like ALTs that I train, it's like if you can, you have smartphones, go quietly record yourself. You quietly record yourself and see, and then you'll see, I could have done this better, or you can see where, there's definitely room for improvement and everything. But I don't think teachers they're so busy, they don't have time to self-reflect like that in general.
Right. But that's one of the big benefits of technology. If we talk about some of the benefits, is that before smartphones, it would be a really difficult setup to set up a camera and recording equipment to record your lesson. But now, right, you just chuck a smartphone on a tripod in the back of the classroom, and you have full video and audio recording that you can easily view anywhere, portably on your computer, etc. So obviously there are many benefits to using technology. So talking about search, if you want to talk about search.
Yeah, go for it. So you're going to be doing a webinar on March 4th, Sunday. And so you spoke very briefly at our mini conference in Osaka on SEO, search engine optimization. So we wanted a lot of people really interested. So you'll be doing our first webinar on March 4th. And so this is kind of be a little bit of a teaser for that webinar. What is SEO, or search engine optimization, for folks who have no idea? Even though people are doing it all the time, we call it just Google it. Google has become a verb now, and I still remember my friend Sarah Becker, and I remember this year. This was 1998.
Right.
When I had the old green-colored, self-contained iMac, the first generation, 350 megahertz, and I was using Yahoo search, and my friend Sarah Becker, who was working for Disney at the time, she was just like, oh, go find this thing. It's like, oh, there's this thing called Google, and I remember when it was a completely white blank interface. And so I clearly remember the first time I was introduced to what Google was, and they had a completely white interface with a search box that was totally different, and they just had a little bit of advertising on the right hand side, and the advertising was just a list basically. So take it from there. Is people are using it all the time, but I'm sure they have no idea what it is. SEO. Right.
So to take a step back from SEO, before we talk about that, I think it's important that a lot of people know just the importance of search. So, like you mentioned, Google started out just as a search box on a white page, and if we talk specifically about Japan, the Google database, so the database of information that Google serves to people when you do search something on Google. Is now the database not only on the front page of Google, but many other services that you wouldn't even realize. So if you're using an iPhone, right, and you're asking Siri a question or something, if you're searching on Safari on your computer, so the majority of those kind of access points, the background database for that is Google, the Google database. So this is something that changed maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, where Yahoo was a big competitor to Google, and there were separate databases. Yahoo had its own database, and Google had its own. But about 5 or 6 years ago, Yahoo decided to scratched their database, so they got rid of their own database, and they're just licensing Google's database right now. So if you do a search on google.com, and if you go, or google.cojp, the Japanese one, and if you go and do a search on Yahoo Japan, so Yahoo COJP, the results will be identical because they're using the same database.
Well, and let me tell you, is Japanese, they still use Yahoo, search. I mean, it's been frustrating in terms of like realizing the lack of computer literacy, or behind computer literacy, and of my students, and even just the adults. Like my high school students, they're in a special like Microsoft Office X specialist program at the high school. And I was introducing to them to like Quizlet, Schoology, all these, online learning sites. And all of them, I noticed they would type the address into the Yahoo search, because that's how they're used to looking for things. And I would say, no, you don't have to do that. Just type it in the address box. And they're like, address box? What are you talking about? Yeah. And so, just small things like that. And just I was teaching them how to right click to copy paste, because they were still going up to the menu. And I was really, I knew it, but when you really see it, you're kind of shocked, in that sense.
I think most maybe junior high schools or high schools, they do have it's called an information class, a JOHO class or something like that, but I don't think they really teach computer literacy skills, and they certainly don't teach information literacy skills. So the library programs that they have out here are pretty old-fashioned. So students really don't realize where they're getting their information from. Students think Wikipedia is the god of information, and anything that they see on Wikipedia is the answer. So that's discouraging. But that's something that will hopefully improve and get better as schools improve their computer literacy or computer programs, and hopefully their information literacy programs.
Well, that's the challenge I think teachers have in the 21st century, and that's my I realized like that's where I can come in and you can come in, and other like innovative teachers. It's like, well, that's the cross I got to bear, and my private school students are way better than my public high school students because of that. It's like, okay, I'm teaching them, how to properly, or not properly, but, in a more up-to-date way to use this technology, and they'll benefit, in the long run. But, it's just, it's frustrating, but also you can see it's an opportunity when you see such a large part of the public education population. It's just like, wow, you guys are behind, but that's where we can help,
Right.
So
exactly. So, if we realize that, search is important, and everyone is doing a search in some way or the other, even if they're not, explicitly searching on Google. If they're, again, asking Siri something, or if they're looking on their smartphones for something, they might not even realize it, but they're accessing the Google database. So as business owners, one of the important things to do is to make sure our business actually comes up on the Google database, and not only comes up, but ideally on the first page. So when a potential customer or a student is searching, for example, for a language school in your area, search engine optimization, or SEO, lets the business owner make sure that Google knows about what your business is doing, and so customers can connect with your business while they're doing that search. And what happened maybe about 4 or 5 years ago is Google introduced a completely different algorithm for how it brought up the results from its database, and they introduced this thing called semantic search. And
semantic search.
Semantic search. And basically,
can you explain real quick what just for the what is an algorithm for people who aren't technically minded?
Right.
I mean, in a nutshell.
Right. In a nutshell, is how Google's computers, they probably have terabytes and terabytes of data. So their Google computers are crawling and searching the web day in and day out, 24 hours a day, and they're collecting data on everything that's out there. So when a person searches for example, eikaiwa, when they put those terms into the search box, how do the Google computers actually go out there and prioritize which sites to put as number one, which sites to put as number two or number three in the search results? So how it ranks the information that gets served to the user, the customer, is an algorithm. So when the computer thinks about what it's going to do to properly display those search results, we could term that.
Now, with all that computing power, I'm just realizing here, if I type in, does it also matter where the user is, in a sense of like, okay, I'm here in Japan, I type in eikaiwa, in Romaji,
Right.
in my part of Kumamoto, Japan, just that basic word. If I'm a parent in Hokkaido who types in eikaiwa, I'm sure, like, will there be a difference in searches because my computer's IP is, in a different location? How does where the person is searching also affect the search?
Absolutely, and that's part of that semantic search. So if you think of basically search as before and after, so before semantic search, you could think of Google just as a pretty dumb search engine. So it just took the keywords on people's home pages. So even if you were in Hokkaido, and say your business was in Hokkaido, and your business's homepage, and you just stuffed your homepage with lots of Tokyo keywords, it was possible to fool the Google algorithm, the Google computer, to make your page come up when somebody searched for language school in Tokyo, even though you weren't based in Tokyo. So that was the before scenario. So what's happened after semantic search was introduced is that Google's trying to understand better information about the user, and to not only just give them a dumb list of results that are based on keywords that are put on by the owners of home pages, but to understand where the user is, their location, their search history, what have they looked for before. Are they often looking for language schools? Are they often, looking for cafes or restaurants? So Google's trying to get kind of a holistic understanding of the type of user. What are they looking for, in order to give them the best answers that cannot be manipulated by businesses. So what Google's trying to avoid is businesses using techniques or kind of tricks to put their business on the front page or the first page of Google search results. And that's what semantic search is all about.
So since you brought that up, I guess, can you give the businesses some tips and techniques that have been used that are like effective, even though the semantic search is, adapting to that?
It's smarter,
they're getting. So what should I look for as a business, to put on my web page for good SEO optimization?
Right. I would say put yourself in the shoes of your prospective customers. So if you were a student in the town that your business is in, and you're thinking about looking for a school, what words would you type in to look for something? So make sure those words are on your homepage. If it's eikaiwa, or if it's eiken, or if it's TOEIC, TOEFL, whatever your school does, make sure the language on your school's homepage reflects those terms. And importantly, it's not just keyword stuffing. You can't just stuff a whole bunch of keywords back to back on your homepage. With semantic search now, Google is smart enough to know what is a real English sentence and what are just a bunch of keywords stacked on top of each other. So you can't just put, Eikaiwa, the city that you're in. You can't put like Eikaiwa Tokyo, Eigo Tokyo. That's not a sentence. And that's not how users search for information. More and more users are starting to search for information using natural, I can't say English, but natural Japanese, natural language. So they're searching using natural terms and not just keywords. So instead of putting, Eikaiwa Tokyo into the search box, users are probably searching for what's a good language school in this area. What's a popular school in this area? Where can I study about the TOEIC test? So they're using question sentences to search for information. And
that's
again,
a good point. And I can see how as things are getting, voice recognition software is getting better and better, Siri and whatnot, people are just going to ask stuff instead of just typing in keywords. So
right, and they're using natural language.
You need to have creative, natural use of those keywords in your embedded into your business page.
Right.
And everything.
So yeah, language is important. Realize that it's not just putting keywords on your homepage back to back. Put yourself in the shoes of your customer. What are they looking for? And one of the big things I'll sort of demonstrate and show in the webinar is a Google business listing, which I think is a key thing almost all business owners must do to make sure their business is properly represented in the Google database. Again, because Google doesn't know. Google computers are just going out there and crawling and capturing data that's on your homepage. But that doesn't tell Google what kind of company you are. It doesn't tell Google what your business hours are, or when your holidays are, or what type of customers you attract, etc. And the Google Business Service from Google lets you do all that.
Now,
so
I guess could you speak a little bit about I guess your own personal experience business-wise with search engine optimization? Basically, you're talking the talk here, and I want to know is like as you walk the walk, how did you see? I guess I'm looking for a story where you saw a significant increase, in your customer base because you made changes from this year to last year, for example, of your keywords, and you're like, oh, this, you saw a significant increase. Do you have or decrease? It could go either way. A learning experience from that. Where you saw.
Yeah. At the language school, we've been increasing our size every year, and I've been doing this from day one. So since we opened the language school, I've always made our representation on Google and on the web kind of a key point for the school. So I guess 90 or 95% of all the potential students that come here come through the homepage, and they get to the homepage obviously by using search. So I'd say almost 90%.
Tell a little bit about your school? It's English Academy LA. I'm assuming the LA stands for Los Angeles.
Right, LA.
And where are you located in Japan, and how long?
Himeji, right. The school's been open for 12 years now. We're in the western part of Japan, near Kobe, Osaka, Himeji City, and the school is focused on business professionals and adults. We do kids classes, but that's not our main focus for the school.
Do you have a web address you'd like to put out there? I mean, I'll put all this in the links too. But what's your web address?
Please just search for LA in katakana, just LA, and put Himeji. If you just search LA Himeji, then our information will come right up.
Cool. And I guess, because I'm I've been here and in my own private academy school. I have a few adult students, and I've had some, non academic clients before in like the medical field and some other business fields. But since you've had more experience, I guess, where do you see it all leading to, or what do you see as like the needs from the business perspective? When they finish, the students have finished with elementary and university and ACHEN, all, because that's what I'm pretty much concerned with, those kind of fluency and accuracy kind of things. But when we're talking about to the real world application, from your 12 years of experience here, what is it that these businesses are needing, or they're seeing in skill needs for their employees or for their business? Because that's the ultimate thing I tell my high school students is, like, after the test is finished and you get into university, what's going to get down to is, like, a company wants someone who can effectively communicate, since English is the business lingua franca of the whole world now. So they want people who can make more money for them, using English or any second language. I'm talking like China's big too.
It doesn't have to be English. So it's Chinese, and I think most of our business clients, they're trying to improve their employees' critical thinking skills in English. So they need employees, and they need staff who can not only communicate in English. I think that's something most companies just expect now, that they have a basic communication skills. I mean, that's really no big deal now. What most companies are looking for are staff who can think critically in English, respond to customers' requests, and be able to either negotiate or solve problems in the real world. So they want staff who could think outside of the box, because these companies are expanding globally. They want staff who could who understand what's going on in the world. So the domestic market here in Japan is just getting smaller and smaller every year. So most companies realize that it's either expand overseas or find their market share slowly disappear. So, they want staff who can survive in that global environment.
Wow, that's for me, like, that's challenging and scary and for us, all those things, because from my end at the high school level and below, I don't, I'm not at an elite school by any means. I think it's a very average school, but those things are just not being taught. And it was a lot of educational culture shock for me when I first came to Japan 9 years ago, where those things that you talk about, problem solving, critical skills, I was doing in my junior high science classroom all the time. And that's what we value that as part of our education system. And then I came here and it's like, wow, it's all rote memorization, and things haven't changed. And it seems like there's a huge disconnect with what which is a real world application that the companies want and need, but the education system, for cultural reasons, for all kinds of reasons, is not providing.
So I think that's one thing that businesses like ours can really step in and provide, that connecting piece. So if you can provide that for students, and they learn, not only how to communicate at your school, but they learn some other skills. I think that's something that they could then transfer to their company, and that's really one of the big areas I think language schools can really fill in that gap from the K-12 years or the university years, and when they enter the workforce, we get lots of company employees who come here and say, well, look, just help. I need help because my company.
Well, and I'm glad that they're recognizing. I think because there's it's profit driven, and these companies, they realize, like you said, the domestic market is shrinking. That they realize that thing. It just hasn't trickled down yet. that's the biggest challenge for my Eikaiwa is not so much as like, they can read, right? But when I'm getting into like open-ended, expressive, critical thinking activities, it's really pulling teeth because the students have been really conditioned to like find one answer, teacher, what do I do next? And so, our students now are pretty autonomous, but it took like basically 2 years to like break them down and get them used to like, go look at the schedule, or, what's next. Or like I just started doing this week was Venn diagramming with them and teach them how to do compare and contrast. It was so tough.
In just like about 15 seconds or so. Is that all right? Our next class is coming up at 12.
Yeah, that's fine. Sorry about that.
No problem. Do you want to like wrap up or something, or is that good? Can we?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, you can see how we could go on with more stuff. It's really fascinating, getting to here with you. But I just want to test out the equipment. I would love to talk more on a longer podcast and everything, but you can see we're both burn the candle at both ends.
Yeah, exactly. We gotta get to class.
Anyway, thank you very much for talking.
To you. Yeah.
All right, that was John Gayed from the LA English Academy in Himeji. Very enlightening to learn about SEO from him. He's going to be giving a live 1-hour webinar via the WizIQ platform. Go to our school owners homepage. Take a look at the links below. It's jaltsig.wixsite.com/home for information. You'll be able to ask him questions and learn more. Sunday, March 4th, 2018, from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Sunday. Okay? Thanks a lot, guys, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.